country here, then we've got to understand the hallowed tradition from which we come. There's been rooms of gatherings like this in our country for decades, for centuries, literally. People gathered in groups like this in church basements to plot and plan the civil rights movement. Literally, there were storefronts in slums where people gathered together to talk about changing sweatshops into workers' rights. In fact, one of my favorite gatherings were where black folks and white folks, under fear of death, would gather in barn houses to plot what is probably one of the greatest infrastructure projects of our nation, the Underground Railroad. We have come a mighty long way as a people, understanding that American history is not made by a handful of select individuals that descend from Mount Olympus, that we read about these great men that supposedly were the ones that transformed our nation. I do discount their genius and their contributions, not at all. But we have come from an understanding that it was ordinary Americans who made an extraordinary commitment on the cause of our country. That is why we are here. And I say, look, it's an ideal that I think of as simply love. I know that is not the best word to use in politics, especially that seems to be out of fashion in this election. But if you look at the founding documents of this country, documents that were saturated, unfortunately, with a lot of the bigotry and the sexism of the time. You read our founding documents and you see Native Americans referred to as savages. You see women not referred to at all. What was it, Stokely Carmichael, I think, the secretary used to always say, constitute. I can only say 3/5 of the word. But the genius of those documents and our founders is that they decided, hey, this is the oldest constitutional democracy. They decided that we're going to found this nation not because we all look alike or pray alike. This is not a monarchy or a theocracy. We're going to put forth a different type of nation. And it's going to be defined by exalted ideals that even though we imperfect men who are writing these documents might not live up to those ideals, we're going to put forth an aspirational nation so that every generation of Americans feels committed to the cause of their country to make these ideals more real for everyone. And I say that word love because they knew the power of love. I learned from some great teachers in Newark that you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. And we know from those documents, read the Declaration of Independence, the literal kickoff of this country, where they write this whole long list of things talking about declaring the independence of this country. But if you read it, you realize it ends with one of the greatest declarations of interdependence ever, with in fact a declaration of love, a commitment to one another, not tolerance. Don't let anybody tell you we aspire to be a nation of tolerance. Heck, I tolerate colds, for crying out loud. Tolerance says if you disappear off the face of this earth, I'm no worse off or better off. Our founders in that declaration said we got to be people of love. We've got to see each other for who we are. We've got to recognize dignity and worth and value. We got to understand that, hey, if your kids fail, I'm the lesser for it. If your kids succeed and manifest their genius, their artistry, if they manifest their entrepreneurialism or their educational excellence, my kids are better off. We are a nation that understood that old African ideal that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I love going to see in Washington when I'm there. I love going to the Jefferson Memorial just so I could read those last words. I love going there because my parents had their first date right in front of the Jefferson Memorial in that little body of water, those paddle boats. Think how smart my dad was to get my mom out in the middle of the water. She could not run away. But I go up there, I stand at night after the Senate's out of session, and I look at those words, that Declaration of Interdependence, that declaration of love, where it says, in order for all this to happen, we must mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We are here today because of this tradition of giving forth your sacred honor. It is this ideal that we are not going to indulge in the dangerous type of privilege that says if there's a serious problem out there in America, but it doesn't affect my family, it must not be that serious of a problem. We're here because we know we are a great nation, but we have work to do. We have work to do when there is a woman out there, single mom, working a full-time job, but still is below the poverty line. A woman who can't leave her job when her child is sick because we're the only industrialized nation that doesn't have paid family leave. We're here because there's a kid sitting in prison right now, been there for 2-3 months, and hasn't even had a trial yet. And they're spending time in solitary confinement, what other nations call torture. We're here right now because there's millions of seniors who work hard all their life. We're patriotic, dedicated citizens, but those seniors live in poverty right now because their meager Social Security check doesn't go far enough. We're here right now because there are diseases in America that we could cure, but we've started to pull back on funding that we used to do and lead the globe on when it's funding things like the NIH.
Yeah.
We're here today because we still live in a nation that if you tell your boss you're gay, that most states in America, that boss can say you're gay, well, you're fired, and you have no legal recourse whatsoever. We're here today because we know that the suicide rate for gay and lesbian teens is 4 times as high as other teens, and that 40% of the homeless on the streets are our gay and lesbian children. We're here today because we know we are a country called to lead this globe. And we can't lead the globe if we unfortunately lead the globe, or at least our industrial peers, in childhood poverty. We have work to do as a nation. And we've inherited this legacy. My father used to look at me when I was a teenager. My father was born poor, and he was here. He'd say, don't tell those people in Philly I was poor. Tell them the truth, I was P.O. I couldn't afford them 2 letters. My father used to say to me, boy, don't you dare walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. Trying to get me to understand that we who are alive now in America, we drank deeply from wells of freedom, liberty, and opportunity that we did not dig. We eat lavishly from banquet tables prepared for us by our ancestors. And we can't just consume our blessings and enjoy the fruits. We got to metabolize those blessings to commit to work for us so we can have the energy and the fortitude to fight. Now, this has been one of the greatest privileges this election. I tell you this, I have had such a good time. We bumped into each other 2 or 3 times. And so this is, imagine me, I'm running around bumping into my icons and my heroes, people who have to teach me something. That, Cory, you're just a young upstart. You've just been at this for maybe, 10, 15 years? I've been doing this for decades, and I haven't gotten tired. I still believe that God has not finished with me yet. I'm meeting these folks. I'll tell you this, I was in Nevada with another great American hero, John Lewis, and I'm walking with him, and we walk past one of these little things where you throw free throws and you have and I just can't resist a basketball. I'm sorry. The older I get, the better I was, and I want to prove it. So I walk over there and I start shooting hoops. John Lewis, it's on my Instagram page, he comes over and starts challenging me to a free throw contest. Now I want you to know, John Lewis literally bled the Southern soil red for my rights and freedoms and yours as well. John Lewis is this incredible man. But in my youth, I played a lot of basketball. In John Lewis's youth, he was marching and sitting in. And so the man is really good at freedom fighting, but he's not good at free throws. And so I love the man. I love him. Please don't get mad at me with this, but I smoked him. But literally, I could not believe, and I put this up on my Instagram page, I just couldn't believe what a privilege it is to be able to walk beside giants. I am 6'3". What Secretary Albright doesn't understand, she may be shorter than I am, but I look up to her. And so, I want you all to know that we have got the baton firmly in hand. Everybody in this room, you breathe American air, you have American privilege, then you are on the spot right now. And the question is going to be, when you were on center stage of American history, when you were in the trenches of our democracy, what did you do? You need to be able to stand and say that, like my ancestors, I may not be called to charge beaches in Normandy. I may not be called to get on freedom rides or march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. But I did not allow my inability to do everything for this country undermine my determination to do something in the cause of my country. I'm not getting caught up in a state of what I call sedentary agitation. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I'm watching Rachel at night and I get really upset. But we all know those 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. That in life you have a choice to make at every moment of your existence. Accept conditions as they are or take responsibility for changing them. Well, we all in this room right now are agents of change. And I'm telling you right now something I know. I know intimately because I'm one of these people that studies 538. I'm going to tell you this right now clearly, that this city right here, Philadelphia, has the power based upon the turnout right here to affect the outcome of 3 branches of the American government. I want to be with Katie McGinty in the Senate. And mark my words, if she wins, you can go to bed. Because if she wins, it will be the sign we need that the Senate goes back into Democratic control. Mark my words, when we win here in Philadelphia, that is going to be what we need to slam the door shut on a pathway for Donald Trump to get to the presidency. And mark my words, if we have control of the Senate and Hillary Clinton is the next president of the United States, we will never have the insult of having Supreme Court justices blocked again from being put on the floor. And so, let me end with a call to my dad. It was 3 years ago, almost to the day that I was sworn as a United States Senator. I got sworn in on a mighty auspicious day. In a special election, it was Halloween. My mom took me to Washington because my dad died 6 days before I was elected, 3 years ago. And she took me first to see John Lewis because she wanted me to understand that, and she even said this to me, boy, you need to know that the title does not make the man has got to make the title. And often it's a woman. So she wanted me to be grounded, and she took me around to see Harry Reid, and to go to the vice president and swear my oath. And I tell you that because my dad, who was not there, but death can end a life, it cannot end a love. And I just want you all to know that I think a lot about that now. I had a chance to meet, again, running around the country, meet Neil deGrasse Tyson, and we started talking about all of us in the context of astrophysics. Everybody here should think about this when you look at the stars, that many of those stars, they're millions of light years away, but many of them have died and gone out. But we still see them as if they're there because the energy and the light and the warmth they gave off while they were alive, it goes on forever in perpetuity. You cannot destroy it. It's the first rule of thermodynamics. And so we here in this room, we still bathe in the light and the warmth and the energy of Americans now long gone. And while we have this brief moment to walk this planet Earth, we have to choose. Are we going to tell our truth? Are we going to be brilliant? Are we going to illuminate the sky so that others can feel the warmth and the hope and the light of America? We've got to decide if we are going to do that. And in these next few days, we need to understand that we will do things that will ripple out into history. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's time for us to take control. It's time for us to understand, like our ancestors, that even though we're tired and fatigued, remember what Sojourner's Truth that I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. She kept fighting forward. We got to remember our ancestors that know that freedom isn't free. As a great man said, that said that in life you don't get everything you pay for, but you must pay for everything that you get. We must understand what King said, that change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. It's carried in by folks like us who work for it. And we've got to understand that this country is still struggling to tell its truth for everyone. And as Langston Hughes said, there's a dream in this land with its back against the wall. To save the dream for one, we must save the dream for all. We are now the dream savers, the dream makers, the dream workers. Let us win the day. Thank you, everybody.